Pontiac Silverdome, where Detroit has won every game this season, including an October tilt with the Cowboys, when the Lions' Ray Crockett added insult to injury. Cowboy quarterback Steve Berline has come off the bench to lead Dallas on a 6-game winning streak. Of course, it helps that he shares the backfield with Emmitt Smith, the NFL's leading rusher. But when it comes to running backs, Detroit's Barry Sanders may be the best in the business. Ironically, the man who gives him the football is also a backup quarterback, Eric Kramer, who led Detroit to its first NFC Central Division title since 1983. Coming up, Dallas and Detroit on the NFL Today. We are just a glitter with playoff fever. Hello, everyone. I'm Greg Gumbel, along with Terry Bradshaw. Dallas or Detroit, the final piece of the puzzle for next Sunday's NFC Championship game against the Redskins in Washington. And with more on the Cowboys and the Lions and their impending battle, let's head out to the Motor City, where Pat O'Brien and Leslie Visser are standing by on the sidelines. Hello, Pat.
Hello, Greg. Good afternoon, everybody. Here in Detroit, you know, if you talk about the Detroit Lions, let's say that you are the Lions at the beginning of the season and you get a chance to look into a crystal ball. And the crystal ball says, hey, Detroit, you're going to lose your opener 45-0 against the Redskins. You're going to lose 6 significant starters. One of your players is going to be paralyzed. You lose half your offensive line. Do you think you'd say back to that crystal ball, we're going to be 12-4, win 8, go 8-0 at home, and win our last 6? I don't think so. This is a team that has overcome challenges all season long. The challenges continue here. Let's bring you up to date on the injuries here. The wide receivers, Brett Perriman and Robert Clark, are available to play, but they will not start, replaced instead by Harvey Matthews, number 83, and the rookie Herman Moore, number 84. On the defensive side, safety Benny Blades has a bad ankle. He will start. Dennis Gibson, the linebacker, is available to play, but Victor Jones may have to step in there and start for him. Overcoming challenges has been the story of this team, and how do you do that? With talent and leadership, and that just might spell Barry Sanders.
How has this team held together all season with the challenges? I mean, you guys just seem to overcome one after another.
I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe. You know, all the injuries to key players. I guess it's just the maturity, and guys been sick of losing. You know, and the character really has changed this year. We expect to win every time we step on the field.
How are you feeling? What's going on inside you today? You nervous,
I'm
excited?
Nervous.
You ready to get out
I'm nervous.
there?
I'm always nervous, a little more today than usual. But everybody's pretty much on the edge of the seats, ready to get out there and play.
Yeah, how do you overcome that nervousness?
Probably just getting in the game and getting hit a couple times.
If you get hit.
Well, hopefully not that many.
Yeah, he looks pretty nervous, doesn't he? We'll see who buries who today. And you want to know how great this country is? We do not have to report about any weather situation. And how much do we love that? Leslie Visser.
Pat, this is one time we're glad to be left high and dry. The last time the Cowboys played here, they turned the ball over 4 times, in part because of the noise. It gets so loud in here that they were confused at the snap count. Well, one of the things they worked on this week was concentrating on Steve Berline's cadence. They don't want any distractions. As for the health of the team, they are remarkably free of injury this late in the season. Steve Berline will start, and stop me if you've heard this before, Troy Aikman is available. Actually, look for Aikman early if the team starts to struggle. Well, I spoke with Steve Berline earlier this morning, and he said he's glad to be here no matter how noisy it gets. Steve, you've won 6 in a row. What do you have to do today to keep this going?
Same thing.
Which is?
Just basically protect the football. We've been playing real well on both sides of the ball. The worst thing we can do as an offense is give them a big turnover, get the crowd going, and give them a short field to work with. Our number one priority is to protect the football, take advantage of our opportunities to make the big plays, but mainly just keep the ball from bouncing their way by giving them interceptions or cheap fumbles, stuff like that.
What about you? Only threw 4 or 5 passes here the last time, but what is the challenge of playing in a dome?
Well, the number one challenge is the crowd. It's something that you got to deal with. I think if you ask 99% of the players that don't play in domes if they like it or not, they say no. But that's because the crowd's always so loud and against you. But it's something you got to deal with. You can't worry about it. And the best way to take the crowd out of it is to get up on them early. Take them out of the game as early as possible, and hopefully we'll get a quick score that'll do that for us.
Great. Thanks, Steve. Good luck.
All right, Leslie.
Thank you. As for stopping Barry Sanders, Jimmy Johnson told me this morning that trying to tackle Barry Sanders is like trying to catch a feather. He said if you hit him, he'll just float away. So the trick is to try to surround him. Greg, I think I'd like to tar and feather him.
All right, Leslie, thanks very much. Trying to catch a feather is a good way to put it. How quick is Barry Sanders?
Well, he's real quick. How do you tackle him? Well, that's another story, but I've got something here I think you'll find interesting. This is an 8-man front. Let me just poke this little baby here and count them for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 defenders. This is Beckett on the outside fine linebacker. Now, that's 8 people. And in football, you have a lane, 1, 2, 3. There's 4 of those lanes, 1, 2, 3, 4 lanes. 8 people, each one covering a lane. The ball will go to Sanders, and he is designed to go off right. Look at this. He goes there. He gets hit. There's a lane shutdown. He bounces around a little bit. Notice to the outside here. No place to go here, here, here. Nothing here. Look at this. Here, here. And look coming from the backside the linebacker. No place to go. But when you're quick and fast, you plant on artificial surface. Look at this. Back behind the linebacker. Now look at the lane. It's all the way back to the backside. The very last hole, the 9th hole, it was supposed to go off the 8th hole over the right. Sanders with his quick and his elusiveness back to the backside. Jerry Clower, a comedian, once said that a guy he tried to tackle found him. He missed him, a real jitterbug runner. He missed him. He was pounding on the ground, and one of his teammates came over and said, "Jerry, don't worry about it. He'll be back in a minute." That's Barry Sanders.
All right, one or two of the great running backs in action this afternoon in this game. Now, this afternoon's winner gets a trip to Washington to play the Redskins in next Sunday's NFC Championship game. Yesterday, the soggy field at RFK took as much of a beating as the Falcons did. With all the mud and the rain, Atlanta Falcons quarterback Chris Miller just couldn't keep the powder dry in his red gun offense. But today, the skies have cleared. The damage is done. Still, Chief Groundskeeper is very optimistic that his crew can get this field in shape for next week's championship game.
The next step will be getting some of the thatch off and turning it over and letting it dry out a little bit naturally before we start adding any kind of drying agents, which is really not conducive to good footing when you're playing football. We'd rather let it dry out naturally, but if we can't, we won't panic because we've got a couple of days of good weather, and we're going to let it dry naturally for a day or so before we start adding the drying agents to it.
And all cleaned up and dried off. Joining us now live from his home in Great Falls, Virginia, is Washington defensive end Charles Mann. And Charles, number one, was it as bad as it looked out there yesterday? And number two, how do you...
Yes, it was.
And how will this field react over the week? What kind of shape do you expect it to be in next week?
We hope it's in terrible shape for next week's game, Greg. We like the bad weather. I really feel like, you know, our odds really go up when we play in bad weather.
Charles, you're going to be playing either Barry Sanders or Emmitt Smith. Now, you've seen them both. You played against Smith, and Sanders didn't play the early game. Now, just as a defensive end, describe their running styles and how different they are and what problems they present to you.
Well, Barry Sanders, thank God we didn't play against him this year, but we did last year, and he gave us fits. He has a strong lower body, and he'll break most tackles. You have to really wrap him up, and you have to gang tackle him. Emmitt Smith runs differently. He runs up to you, and right when you're getting ready to make the hit, he'll stop. He'll even go backwards or move back a little bit and let you fall in front of him, and he'll take off again. So his is more of a start-stop kind of running, and when he hits a hole, he'll hit it quick, just as quick as Barry Sanders. But Barry Sanders will break tackles by running through them, and Emmitt Smith will break them by stopping and turning and changing direction.
Charles, if I ask you who you'd like to play next week, you're going to say it doesn't matter, you're just glad to be there, but you've played the Cowboys twice this year. You beat them down there, they beat you at RFK. Wouldn't you like to meet them again and settle this whole thing?
Well, I feel like it is settled. We went 14-2. You know, our record stands alone at the top of the NFL this year. We've proven to people that, you know, we have to be reckoned with. We have the playoff games in our own backyard in RFK. At that point, you know, we really couldn't care who we play.
Let me ask you, Charles, you've got a T-shirt on that says National Defense. Now,
right.
yeah,
National
that's
Defense.
right. Stick your chest out there. Now, I mean, just exactly what is this, and what does it represent?
It represents unity on the Redskins ball club. National Defense is our whole defensive unit coming together, banding together for a common good, and that is to win the Super Bowl. But also we have some other things in mind this offseason. We want to do some community service work. Darryl Green has a Youth for Life Foundation that we're going to be giving some of the monies to. I work with the Metropolitan Police Boys and Girls Club in the inner city in Washington, which we'll be doing some things with them also. And we have a lot of things on the agenda, but it all comes after we hopefully get to the Super Bowl and win that.
Charles, thanks very much for taking the time. We'll be in Washington next weekend. We'll see you then, okay?
Okay.
Thank you very
guys.
much. Charles Mann. Now, over in the AFC at Rich Stadium in Buffalo, the Bills dominating the Kansas City Chiefs. 2 minutes remaining to be played in that game. It's a blowout time. The score is 37-14. Jim Kelly has thrown 3 touchdown passes, so the Bills will host the Denver Broncos for the AFC Championship next Sunday. Next up, more from Leslie and Pat with a look at how an Arkansas oil man hit his biggest gusher in Texas and how they're gushing with enthusiasm in Motown. Those stories and John Robinson as we continue live from New York on the NFL Today. We're 1-15. Last year, they were 7-9 and just missed a wild card spot. Today, they are 1 victory away from the NFC Championship game. That is progress. And Leslie has the story of the man responsible for it. Leslie.
Greg, when Jerry Jones bought the Dallas Cowboys, people said, who is this carpetbagger from Arkansas who fired the legendary Tom Landry and hired his friend? Well, 3 years later, he's overseen the reemergence of the silver and blue.
I think the lack of not having a proven NFL management team together was certainly one of the things that I heard criticized the most. If you could have one word for our organization and our approach to how we've managed, is aggressiveness. You can't take risks like the Herschel Walker trade if you're worried about someone else grading your report card other than the fans. I knew the thinking that Minnesota, the rationale they were using, and they felt like he was the last addition to bringing them to the Super Bowl. The Cowboys haven't been to a Super Bowl, I think, in 14 years. When I bought the club, I really did know that we need to start winning and winning soon.
Good morning, Jerry. When you were 1-15, people thought, oh, this is a disaster. How did you stay focused?
Well, we certainly had a semblance of a plan, and good things were happening for us. We were making trades that gave us picks that we could make more trades and do better in the draft. You know, before I got involved with the Cowboys, I visited with a lot of people in the NFL and came away with some good advice. Number one, and they said, look at the Cowboys and the tradition of the Cowboys. Number one, have stability in ownership. Number two, stability in coaching. Number three, stability at quarterback.
Felt like location. You've come so far so fast. What are your thoughts on the Super Bowl?
Well, we'd like to be there, and the way our team is playing, they don't know that they can't be there.
Jerry Jones, of course, orchestrated the Herschel Walker trade, which has already yielded Emmitt Smith, Russell Maryland, and Isaac Holt, plus a pile full of draft picks. When I said to him, Jerry, that must have been the worst trade in the history of sports, he said, no, Leslie, it was the best. Let's go over to Pat O'Brien. Pat?
All right, Leslie, thank you. You know, through the years, we have covered a lot of champions in the Motor City, but this time of year, there is something new around here, Super Bowl dreams, real ones. So, it's January in Detroit. That's the Pistons, right? Well, maybe. January in Detroit, the talk on every corner is about those red-hot Red Wings, right? Oh, yes, football, the Rose Bowl. Indeed, January is a big sports month for Detroit. Wait a minute, what's this? Pro football in January?
I'm going to be at the stadium. I've been to a live game in my life.
This is a big deal here. The last time Detroit played the Cowboys in the playoffs, 1970, 5-0, Dallas. The alums are back for a piece of the cake.
So we're going to get it this time around. He's going to get that sweet revenge for his dad.
Friday night, some other paybacks. A benefit for Mike Utley, who's in a Denver hospital paralyzed. A time to help the Utley Foundation and to get close to the fans. Both are important to this team.
There you go. Hey, tell everybody in my man said hi. I knew y'all would be here this morning. Come on in. This is the locker room, see? This is where we go in the locker room.
Like he's going to never, man.
He will be here. Talked to him last night. Gave him tickets. He'll be here.
And you thought we left Jerry Glanville in Washington. It looks like the end of a long season, and early yesterday the players started their final focus.
All business. Get your minds right. The job due tomorrow. We start it right now.
Another team meeting to read once again all those plays that got you here. Some are already counting their playoff cash.
I could add on to this swing set. We want to get a little of this playoff money. Some of that Super Bowl money I could add on to the place.
You think you have too many meetings where you work? You can see, though, the game faces are starting to take shape. Sunday, today, the team meal before the game. They are hoping we can see them do this 2 more times. And some late news to report here. Dennis Gibson, linebacker, will not start. He'll be replaced instead by number 57, Victor Jones. And about time to play ball. Back to Greg and Terry.
All right, Pat, no surprise there. Another injury for the Detroit Lions. We'll take a timeout. When we come back, some pregame insight from former L.A. Rams head coach John Robinson. Well, it's final in Rich Stadium in Buffalo. The Bills go to 14-3 on the season, 37-14. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and they will host the Denver Broncos next Sunday. Once again, it's our pleasure to welcome former Los Angeles Rams head coach John Robinson, our guest analyst this weekend. And John, let's talk about Detroit against Dallas. What does each of these teams have to do today?
Stop the run. I mean, that's the first thing that both defenses, I'm sure, are thinking about now. We've got to stop the runner on the other side. They got to get 8 guys, 9 guys, whatever it takes to get up there and stop the run. Then I think the next thing is both passers then get an opportunity to make plays because the focus is on the run. So Kramer and Berline are going to have a great opportunity. But the first thing is you've got to stop those 2 backs.
Noise is a factor in the Silverdome.
Big factor because the Dallas Cowboys are going to try to audibilize when they come up to stop the run, audibilize to the pass, and that's very tough in this kind of stadium.
The visiting quarterback, Jerry, what kind of problems?
Well, you know, Coach Robinson knows this, but the Cowboy offense, Norv Turner, the coordinator for the Cowboys from the Rams, one of the things the Cowboys will do today is they'll run 40% of their offense. It's called check with me. They just call a front, and then Berline walks up, gets under the center, looks at the coverage, and then calls the play. Now, the crowd noise will limit maybe the audibles and also will force to bring in the receivers closer so they can hear, which will give them a false sense of really what the coverage is.
John, Terry showed us earlier how elusive Barry Sanders is. How do you stop him?
I think you got to get him fast. That's where I think you got to get guys up there close, and you can't rush the passer. You've got to be standing there waiting for him up close. If he gets everybody spread out, he can just run through you like a maze. I've never seen a back in a broken field quite like him.
Okay, one thing we do know that the Dallas Cowboys have all kinds of weapons to throw at you.
Well, I'll tell you a weapon, you know, without, just exclude personnel. Just for one of the biggest weapons I see them is their special teams. You know, they have had 4 block punts this season. 3 of them, Greg, John, on the road. Yes. They've had 4 kickoff and punt returns for touchdown. We're 3 of them on the road. This is a football team that has 35 turnovers, but only 9 on the road. So when I get to thinking about this game, the key that comes is this team, this Cowboy team, plays at their best on the road.
All right, Terry, John, thanks very much. We'll take a time out here, and next up, we'll head back out to the Silverdome. Pre-game introductions are about to commence. The Cowboys and the Lions gearing up for... What a moment in the Pontiac Silverdome as the Detroit Lions are about to play their first home playoff game since 1957, and the introduction of the Lions is underway.
Herman Moore, and quarterback number 12 from North Carolina State, Eric Kramer, and the S-back number 20 from Oklahoma State, Barry Sanders, and head coach Wayne Bond, and the rest of your champion Detroit Lions.
The Detroit Lions out at midfield with a special salute to teammate Mike Utley, who became partially paralyzed in a game in Detroit on November the 17th. They have been riding an emotional high and dedicate each and every game to him. Coming up, it's the Cowboys against the Lions. The winner gets a trip to the NFC Championship game in Washington. We'll see you back here at halftime.